Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And today I have Alex with me, and we're going to talk about wellness therapy and wellness coaching because that's what Alex is into. And obviously, I'm into the more holistic end of things. As you guys know, it's my 30th birthday on Thursday. So as we all get older, our body metabolism changes, believe it or not. And so that's why I brought Alex on the show. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Alex take it away.
Well, and happy early birthday. I'll be sure to wish you a happy birthday in 2 days as well. Thank you so much for having me on today. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Alexander Bear. When reach out to me, I guess through moderndaysuperhero.com, which is my website, in which I interview really inspiring people in the area of health and wellness. So currently I work, as Wynn said, in wilderness therapy as a wilderness therapy field guide and a facilitator of solo experiences where clients will go out into the woods for 4 days and 4 nights, and I kind of help put that together so that they can use nature as a tool for healing. In a few months, I'll be starting a master's nutrition program in Portland, Oregon at the National University of Natural Medicine, so I'm really excited for that. So when that's basically about myself, and I'd be really happy to answer any questions you have about wellness and health, anything I can do to support you.
I would greatly appreciate it. But my first question right out of the chute is, you said you are a guide to the wilderness, not wellness necessarily. Is this meant for the disabled, or is this meant for anyone, or is this meant for the veterans? Because we have a program out here that I'm actually semi-involved with, Challenge Aspen Military Opportunities, CAMO, and what they do is take these veterans out on the river and all throughout the woods in Colorado, and the Colorado Veterans Affairs is actually doing HUDs for Vets, which is pretty much similar to something you're doing in Oregon, but it's out in Colorado, both beautiful states on the planet. And so is this meant for the disabled, or is this meant for anyone?
Well, where I work, it's a primary rehabilitation center for young adults who are suffering with alcohol and drug addiction.
It is.
So
it is. I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought so. I didn't want to assume things, but I thought that it is, because it sounds like something along the lines of that.
Yeah, so they do have, usually they have co-occurring mental health disorders, whether it's borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder. So they have substance abuse issues along with some sort of mental health challenge that they're going through at that time.
Okay, so you are helping mentally disabled in a sense.
Yes.
Well, the temporarily mentally disabled, although being temporarily mentally disabled could lead to a permanent mentally disabled, and I won't say the old word on this podcast, full well what I'm talking about. So, Alex, what has been your best success story, both in your college pursuits and where you are working?
I'd say in my college pursuits and just part of my personal life. During college, my father was diagnosed with bile duct cancer, and he passed away my junior year. And I had the desire to become a physician all throughout college, and really seeing my father go through the treatments and how sick he was and then eventually die, it really kind of threw me off of that track. I wanted to find a way to help people in a way that was, I guess, more in line with my values of, holistic healing and wellness and all that. But I came to realize that I was really depressed too from going through that and other things in life. So I think something that was really vital to me, really just something I'm really proud of in a way that I succeeded was, pretty much the past 4 years I had depression and anxiety, and then until recently when I started working in this field and started meditating more and really taking care of myself, I was finally able to overcome some of those challenges I had during my college career. And now, like I said, I'm going back to school, which I'm really excited about. So that's kind of my, in the sense of college and my personal life, that's something I'm really proud of, an achievement. And in terms of professionally, it's really difficult to say because the clients we work with, due to HIPAA laws, we can't actually track after they leave the program what they're doing in their recovery. It's just against the law to do that. So, but I will say on the topic of what I do in wilderness therapy and part of the Vision Quest program, I get to see the clients come in from day one when they're just miserable, don't want to be at the program, are cursing at you and telling you they hate you and they don't want to be there, they want to go home, and they're perfectly fine. And in reality, they've been struggling with addiction for, 5 years, 10 years, and got to the point where they got kicked out of their house and no one was willing to take care of them anymore, and this is their last chance. Either they come here or they go to jail. So you see them in that state, and then, 45 days later or 60 days later, you see them, and I'm part of a clinical team, a team of people who help these clients go from that state to a state where they're actually smiling and laughing and joking and just really excited about life. So I'm really proud to be a part of that experience, especially at the end with the solo or the Vision Quest, where they come and they get to face some of their fears and some of their anxieties on their own with the help of the forest. And I'm just part in that, facilitating it, making sure that they're safe out there, making sure that they're vulnerable and willing to do that kind of work. So I'm really proud that for the past year and a half I've gotten to delve into that work and help these young men and women in that way.
I bet you are, geez. And I'm so sorry I completely forgot about HIPAA. For those of you that don't know what HIPAA is, me being a patient in the medical field, you can't necessarily share what's going on in the medical field with other people unless they sign off on it. And I'm so sorry. I should know better.
No, that's perfectly fine. That was a really great question. I really appreciate you asking that.
But now I feel like I'm a dummy asking a question that I know can't be answered yet, but I'll answer this question. What has been your favorite book? It doesn't have to be a business book. It doesn't have to be a book about the wilderness either. It just has to be a book that you go back to time and time again.
I would say it's Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Dr. Bernie Siegel. Dr. Siegel, I believe he's retired now, but he was an oncologist, and he was practicing medicine for many years, and he was having a lot of trouble with it at one point because he just saw cancer in everyone, and he felt like he wasn't doing anything to help anymore. And then he had some sort of like spiritual journey, and he came to the realization that he was actually helping people, and he found a spiritual guide, and he wrote this beautiful book that it really stuck with me. Like I said, my father passed away from cancer, so it was about the same time, maybe 6 months after a friend recommended that book, and I've had it ever since, and it's something I haven't read it in some time actually, but it's something I know I can always go back to and get some inspiration from.
How cool is that? So it's a medicine-related book. It's not necessarily a business book. It's a medicine-related book, but you still gain inspiration from it.
Yes, definitely.
And so my next question is, what is your favorite podcast, if you have one? And yes, NPR counts as a podcast.
Actually, my favorite is Fat Burning Man by Abel James. He's the first podcast I actually ever listened to, maybe 2 years ago. And you can tell I'm interested in health, and he had a lot of good guests on the topics of like nutrition and wellness and overall health. And his podcast really inspired me to start my own. And then his podcast actually led me to learn about Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, which is one I really like too. I know you only asked for one, but those are the two that I found the most useful.
Give me two. I don't care. So you have your own podcast. Hint, hint. Why aren't you promoting that podcast?
Well, it is on the website, moderndaysuperhero.com. There's a tab for the podcast and the show. So yeah, that one's all about, I think I said it, discovering purpose in life and optimizing health. So I interview some experts in that field, kind of like you interview people as well, to share their story and to share any tips they have for being healthy and being happy.
Well, I love that we're on the same mission. I'm trying to inspire the disabled and able-bodied alike. And so what has been your favorite podcast interview you have done? I know I asked the favorite child question.
It's hard to say. I've really enjoyed doing them all because I've interviewed friends. I've also interviewed professionals. But I think the one that stands out is there's a man, Dr. D'Agostino, he's a researcher for nutrition therapies related to metabolic diseases like cancer. And he was interviewed, I'm sure you know some of these people like Tim Ferriss, Dave Asprey, who else? Dr. Rhonda Patrick. So he was interviewed by all these people, and he happened to be a professor where I went to school. So I asked him if I could interview him, and he said yes. So that was, as I saw, you're also into getting the word out and having a lot of downloads. And that episode, even before that was the first week I started, it got like 1,000 downloads, and everything else had maybe 20 or 30. So so it was really humbling to be able to interview someone, of that stature.
And this was a professor who works at your school.
Yeah.
Well, may I be so lucky as to interview a professor who works at my school. I'm actually going back to school in the fall for fashion journalism, believe it or not, only to make this podcast bigger and better and stronger and have a better sense of what I'm doing.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, I had read about that too, I think. Or maybe
thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's all over the place. Yes, it's all smack dab all over this podcast. So, thank you. And so, that being said, were you starstruck when you interviewed him because he was interviewed by so many big people, or did you not think anything of it?
No, it was funny you asked that because I had listened to, he was featured on maybe 10 other podcasts, and I had listened to a handful of them, and I had heard his voice, when I was driving in my car or, listening on my phone, like in my ear. So when I was interviewing him and I was realizing I was asking him the questions, I was almost like, wow, I can't believe this is happening right now. Kind of like yesterday I was going through your list and I saw that you interviewed John Lee Dumas, or JLD, I forgot his last name. And you were saying the same thing.
JLD. Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, it was definitely
I didn't think anything of it. I tried my hardest, you guys, to ask him the uncommon questions because he gets over 1,000 downloads of his podcast, and he came out of the Veterans Service and then started a really successful podcast when podcasting wasn't even popular. So for these big name stars, they might think, oh, this is another small podcast, but yet we don't think anything of it.
Right. Yeah. His is really inspirational.
It's a lot of people's feelings, including mine. And so what would be your best advice for someone, I have two questions now. What would be your best advice for someone that wants to go the holistic route and study holistic medicine in school? And then second, what would be your best advice for someone starting a podcast in the holistic realm, or any podcast at that?
Wow, the first question is one I've had that question in my own mind since I was 14, and I'm 27 now, and I finally have decided, so that's great timing. For holistic health, there's so many ways you could possibly study it. There's naturopathic schools, there's oriental medicine schools, acupuncture, the list, there's just so many. The one I decided on, though, which I'll apply to after I finish my graduate program, is so you can go to regular medical schools, so like an MD program, or osteopathic medical school, which is a DO program. And through that, you can, after you're finished with your school, and sometimes during it too, you can learn about integrative medicine, which is combining like complementary and alternative medicine with some of the more Western medicine philosophies. So like that's what I've decided. That's what I found is best for me and most practical for me to do. So if someone was curious about it, I actually know a lot about that as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions. That's what I found was the best path for me with all of my experiences and all the doctors I've met. And in terms of starting a podcast or anything on like holistic health or otherwise, I've actually had some friends ask me, and I really think to learn Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, that's how I learned. I listened to some of his podcasts, and he has a tutorial. I can't remember the link offhand, but maybe I can send it to you. His way of explaining it was very clear, and it took a few hours, but it really saved me a lot of time in understanding how to set up the website, how to set up the podcast, and how to make it so the audio is good quality, and it just it's a great resource. It's really helped me. So that's smartpassiveincome.com.
Well, I listened to Pat Flynn's podcast too, and I also listened to Ask Pat, you guys. Ask Pat is a shorter podcast where people submit questions to Pat, and he picks it out of a mailbag and then answers it live on the show. And he does fabulous show notes as well, and that gets over 1,000 downloads, I believe. And Pat would actually be one of my dream interviewees to interview. So if he's listening, yes, or if you guys know of how to get Pat Flynn's head or how to get on Pat Flynn's calendar, let me know. And so, Alex, who would be your dream interviewee?
Pat Flynn's actually a really good one. I hope it comes on my show someday too. But actually, Dr. Joseph Mercola, he runs Mercola.com, and his website was the first that got me started with this whole journey of holistic health and wellness and healing. At that time, I was 14 years old and I had acne, and I was wondering why I had it. So, I used Google because I grew up in the age of computers and Google. And then I found his website, one of the first ones, and ever since, I've been so passionate about health. So definitely Dr. Mercola. And he's been around for so long, and he's interviewed so many people. I don't know if I'll ever meet him or I'll get the chance to interview him. But
well, you may.
Yeah,
maybe. The power of Twitter, the power of websites, you may. You never know who's listening to this podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And so, where could people find you, and how could people get a hold of you?
So I have a website. It's moderndaysuperhero.com. So there is a good place because it has really like what I'm about, and the podcast there, and the blog is there. On Twitter, it's MD Superhero, and on Facebook and Instagram, it's Modern Day Superhero 1, and my name is Alexander Bear. So that's the best way. Also, the simplest email that I check frequently is related to the business and website is moderndaysuperhero1@gmail.com. So I think that's the best.
And we will have all of Alex's information in the show notes. Tomorrow when you guys hear this, and then I'm disappearing, you guys know that because I'm disappearing. It's my birthday, and so no hearing from Win via podcast, although that's not true. I have 2 interviews. People really want to get a hold of me on my birthday. But I said 2 interviews, and that's it. I told my assistant 2 morning interviews, and I said, that's it. So you guys will be hearing from me on Thursday just because, or maybe on Monday. We may postpone these interviews until on Thursday. How does that sound to you guys? Because even though I have stuff coming out on Thursday, I don't want to be uploading podcast interviews until the afternoon. So I'll decide and tell you guys. So, Alex, I know you have questions for me, and so I want you to ask away.
Sure, thank you. I was curious how, when something in your life doesn't go as planned, like you have some sort of difficulty or challenge, like what's the best way you found to deal with that? Like whether it's, some exercise you do or whatever it may be. So how do you deal with like the adversities of life the best way possible?
Well, okay. This is coming from a 29, almost 30 years old who has battled CP, cerebral palsy, since 1987. And so adversity to the life is my middle name here. And so I put it to you this way. With the help of my family and the help of holistic medicine, believe it or not, and the help of alternative PT, which is the exoskeleton. To those of you guys who don't know what that is, that's a robot that I walk in. I'm the first woman in the U.S. to be walking with cerebral palsy in a robot using a walker and improving my gait every step of the way, no pun intended. So when I face the diversities of life, whether I'm having a bad CT day with my Fuji's in a way that I can control and all that good stuff. I just think how lucky I am, whereas some people with BP aren't lucky. Like, they can't host this podcast, and so that's how I deal with the adversities of life when they get me out. I'm really, really lucky because of my moderate to severe hemiplegia cerebral palsy that I don't have bad days. I am really, really lucky. I don't know how I got the lucky stick on that one, because I just can't figure out why I would have hemiplegia cerebral palsy, moderate to severe, and still be able to function. I don't know what planet graced me with that one, because they told my parents in 87, the 60s, the 70s, and the late 80s, also the 80s, they were telling parents to stick their kids in homes. This child would never talk. This child would never walk. This child would never function. And so when the diversities of life get me down, I think how lucky I am to be as high functioning as I am. And I'm sorry for the long answer, but that's the way I feel.
No, I really appreciate it. That's really inspiring. I appreciate you taking the time to answer it in that way. That's actually really helpful to me too. Everyone goes through adversities. Not, you've gone through so many, and to be able to say you can just get up and be grateful for every day, that's incredible. That's something I should definitely, keep in my back pocket and make sure I do every day as well. Is it okay to ask you one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I saw you've written a book and you're working on another, I believe. What do you have in...
I have written 8 books, correction, 9, almost 10 is it coming out. So 9 is coming out, 10 is coming out. Yeah. So,
yeah. I haven't written a book, but I do plan to write one in conjunction with going to the nutrition program. And I was curious, just any advice you had on writing books, like just what you found to be the most helpful for getting a book written.
Certainly don't Google how to write a book. Certainly use someone like me who's experienced enough to use self-publishing. What I do, and all my fans know this, is I self-publish to create space. So what you need to do is format the book, get a cover. You guys, and I'm telling Alex this, so when he goes to write his book while he's in school, go this route. You guys, don't use Cover Creator via Create Space. Get a professional graphic designer. I have learned the hard way with iWin. It's funny you mentioned books, because iWin is going through a little bit of a makeover due to one of my fans. I got caught with my hands in the cookie jar, and one of my fans goes, "I want to help you out." So I thank you to that fan, Brian F., who's helping me out right now. And so just do it right the first time, and then you'll be ever so happy. So my advice to Alex is just start. Open up that notepad and open up Siri on your iPhone and just start dictating away. For those of you who are on the PC side and on the Android side, yes, you have Dragon Naturally Speaking. Yes, Dragon Naturally Speaking is an app on the iPhone and on the Android side, definitely on the Android side. But Siri is how I wrote my first book, and now it's getting re-edited. after so many years, and now it's getting the TLC. It finally needs. I didn't do a very good job of uploading it, I admit to you. And so now, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have taken my own advice on giving to Alex.
Thank you for that advice. That's really helpful. I'll make sure I'll look into that app. I didn't even know about that you could write a book like that. Yes. A lot of times thoughts will come and it's just way easier to get it down than try to write everything out. Thank you.
Yes. No, that's how I wrote my book. And Siri, Apple Siri comes on the iPhone automatically.
Yeah, that's what I have, so I'll definitely use that.
You just have to go into your settings and turn it on.
Thank you.
And so that's how I would do it. And yeah. So Alex, what would be a closing piece of advice to anyone listening to this podcast?
The first thing that came to mind is give yourself a hug. Allow yourself to feel love. That's all.
I know we all need that.
Yeah.
And so give yourself a hug. That's the advice from Alex there of moderndaysupernhill.com, and we'll have all the information in the show notes. And Alex, I know you will be sharing this out on Facebook and Twitter. I know you hang out on Facebook, and I know people can DM you for more information about the program. And give us the program's location again.
I work in Asheville, North Carolina. Although the website is just it's an online kind of thing. I'll be moving to Oregon, but so online everything is there. I don't really necessarily have a physical location yet. Right now I'm in Asheville, and in September I'll be in Portland, Oregon.
Okay. So I want to know the program you're working with or working for.
Okay. I work for Red Oak Recovery Center in Leicester, North Carolina, and that's the young adult alcohol and drug addiction rehabilitation center. And then my own business is the moderndaysupernhill.com website.
And are those two connected via their website?
No, I'm an employee at Red Oak, so it's not necessarily connected. I do actually interviewed the program director of that company, so that can be found. That can be found on the website, though.
Okay, so if people just Google Red Oak, they can certainly find it.
Yeah, redoakrecovery.com.
redoakrecovery.com. That's what I was trying to get at. If you guys can just Google redoakrecovery.com, if you know someone who is in that predicament, please, before you call help, please try and send them Alex's way, because Alex is changing lives, going back to school to change more lives, and Alex is at modernsuperhill.com, and we will have more information in the show notes, or I should quit saying we. I will have more information in the show notes, and you guys know how to get to the show notes by now. You click on the cover artwork in Stitcher on the Android side, Google Podcast on the Android side, iTunes on the Apple side, Libsyn.com on the website, and it will automatically flip over. And depending on the show host, they should put show notes in so you guys can find information, because 90% of podcasts are listened mobilely. So what I do is hyperlink Alex's stuff all in my show notes, and that's how you guys find the show notes. And this podcast has been sponsored by Kitter, Kitter. Kitter is a desktop app for Twitter, and you can compose the tweet or they can compose it for you. But what's cool about them is they put the hashtags with it, the trending hashtags, so you don't get lost in the heat, you guys, on Twitter. And again, I would love to thank Alex for coming on this podcast and sharing his incredible story about podcasting and helping to keep the world healthy. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.